subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Blast off! Good morning!
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Here's what's happening!
You see the shirt? The moose with the cigar. Just thought I'd show you that. Tony Caravan with you for another morning show. Early in the morning. I wanted to start this thing off. I don't know, people look at me. Today's show is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to show you some clips from... I'll probably split the screen and show you some clips from news happening around the world, or the U.S. really. But I wanted to give a free plug out to something that you may or may not have heard of. Probably haven't heard of it. I'll hold this up and hopefully at the top of it you can see that there's an abbreviation, HELPS, helps. And this is a newsletter that I get. And what this organization does is it's a non-profit law firm, and I'm trying to give you, their website is helpsishere.org, and I'll put that down at the bottom of the screen. Helpsishere.org. And for anyone who's on disability, Social Security, retired, and has and basically your Social Security income is your sole source of income, and say you may have accrued debt over the years, and you know what it's like, the way these credit card companies have their predatory behavior. And so a lot of people started out with like a $300, $500 balance on a credit card, and especially with this COVID, or they just don't have the money. And the next thing you know, they didn't make some payments. It gone into collection. The collection agency, they tack on all this stuff, and what was a couple of $100, and now you owe a couple $1,000. You times that by a couple of credit cards, and it's this insurmountable debt for somebody who's on a fixed income. And again, with Social Security, I know there's some people out there, Social Security socialism. It's not really. It's deducted from your payroll each week. People who've worked 40 plus years, their entire life, paid into the system. Their employers pay into the Medicare system, and the unemployment system. But Social Security, these funds, this is your right, and unless that system was changed, that money is owed to you. Well, anyway, if Social Security is your primary source of income, and you may have maybe a minor source of income, this group, and you have people, collectors, calling you and getting all this mail and threatening mail and things like that. These people will represent you for little or nothing a month, like $10 a month. And what they'll do is they'll contact you, they'll send a letter to these creditors and say, leave these people alone because Social Security is untouchable. And that's a fact. That's a legal fact. And so you don't have to pay these predatory collection agencies, and you can have that peace of mind. And it's called HELPS, and I highly recommend it. And like I say, during this, I'll have this link down there, and I'm just giving them a free plug. I've used them, and they've made a tremendous change in in my life, and I think it could help a lot of people. And that's one of the reasons why I can live debt free right now. And they can explain it better, and they even have videos on the website, on the YouTube. But you can have up to twice of what your Social Security income is in your bank account, and that's untouchable by any collection agency or collector. So that's it. I hope I explained that well, and I'm going to move on now to some of these headlines. And so let's give this a try and see if I'm going to put this up and then do a narration over top of some of the things going on. So let's just switch to another gear right now. So what I'm showing you is some screen captures, like, of the absurdities of going on. Like Fauci, this guy is trying to tell people that they have to wear 2 masks now. And do you see how insane that is? And all of these executive orders where they're stopping new oil and gas drilling while we're an independent country as far as energy independence, opening up the door to Middle East turmoil, tens of thousands of jobs, up to 1 million jobs could be lost in the oil industry. Who knows what could happen around the world as far as them seeing these clowns, these press conferences. This guy, this new Secretary of State is out of control. Kerry's back in business with some kind of this crazy climate thing. Some of the idiot. Biden signs an executive order so you can't call it the China virus. I mean, how juvenile is this? And yet, this whole thing is still dominating the news. And I just wanted to make a quick, show you some quick clips of just how absurd the news really has become, and how politics is, the pop culture. Look at the stack of executive orders there, on Biden's desk. I mean, it's a clown. He's wearing a mask in the Oval Office, where he's tested every day, and no one's allowed in the building without a mask. And it's just quite insane. So enough of that. If you're those of you who decided to stick through that whole thing, let's get on with the show. And I know I've been preaching lately, and I've really been trying to drive it home that this whole idea of politics as pop culture and the insanity of what goes on in Washington is not reality, and that it's this old world order and these bureaucrats and what's going on at Davos right now, and in Brussels, that's really ruling the world. But what I'm trying to get at is I have to admit here, and I openly admit, I had no idea just really how quickly and how much damage these guys would do in basically 1 week's time. I was talking, if you've seen my earlier videos, I was saying 6 to 18 months the U.S. will be unrecognizable and beyond repair. In other words, forget about 2022 elections. At that point, the country will be just gone. But what I'm seeing occur in 1 week's time is such a mean, the word surreal is overused by me and by other people. I mean, it literally is. It's comical in a dark way, because I watched a little bit of, and like I said, I watched through YouTube. I watched a little bit of the tail end of a press conference where they were talking about climate. I guess it was after the executive order on climate change, and there was some woman there. I don't know who she is, and I don't care who she is. I guess she's the one in charge of the climate thing. And then Carrie came on, and it was complete and utter naivete and nonsense. And what they were trying to explain was that how they were going to create jobs by destroying, our basically our petroleum-based society, and carbon-based civilization that we have today, without any explanation or any reporter questioning them and saying, what are you going to do? Like, if you noticed in the opening of this particular episode, I showed all that heavy equipment, all those odd things. They didn't even look like trucks. They are all devices used by people in various construction, drilling. It's incomprehensible to the average person, and certainly these insulated people like Kerry and like these Washington professional politicians, trust fund babies that have now grown up. They have no idea that this equipment even exists and what role it plays in holding the very fabric of our society together. And they talk about jobs and fixing infrastructure and all of that sort of stuff. But without fuel, combustion engine fuel, there simply is no United States of America or Western civilization. And there won't be for decades and decades and decades to come. You cannot operate this heavy equipment that's necessary for the day-to-day operation in every township, borough, village, city across America. And they number in tens of thousands of places and affect 330 million lives or more. In other words, the operation and the function of our society is dependent upon these devices, the combustion engine, that these people don't have a clue even exist. They just don't know it. And for example, and it's the same with, like, I criticize Elon Musk. He is clueless. They create batteries. Oh, we're going to have an SUV that looks like somebody took some kind of folded a piece of aluminum. I mean, it's the most unbelievable, ugliest, poorly designed thing I've ever seen in the world. It's like somebody on their desk got a piece of paper and folded it in such a way and said, hey, look, this could be it. Look at this futuristic thing. It's not futuristic. But what I'm trying to get at is, okay, let's assume that they made a battery that's double or quadruple the output of the current battery, so that they were maybe to put this inside a skid steer or a smaller ambulance, not a heavy duty ambulance. The problem is these batteries have to be charged. So, if someone is these things, all this heavy equipment uses a very heavy amount of power, to do things, In other words, these vehicles weigh tons and tons and tons. And in the case of things like excavators or fire trucks or road repair equipment, farming equipment, anything like that. Cranes. The demand on them is incredible. So say you're fixing a bridge that's gotten washed down through some flood out in along the Mississippi somewhere, in more or less in the middle of the nowhere. And say the power's been out for 2 weeks or something like that. Well, how do you come in and rescue people? Right? Because say you even were able to have battery powering some kind of miniature bulldozer, right? Which, like, again, is fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, really. Okay, well, all right, so they come in there and they're able to dig out rubble and do some things, and those batteries are spent. Well, how are you going to charge the batteries? So that's the thing they're not thinking about. Oh, we're going to fix infrastructure and highways and roads and dig underground pipes, sewage lines and gas lines and repair these things. Well, all of those things aren't next to some kind of, charging station. And this is what I'm saying, the absurdity. Watch my earlier video where I talk about how the infrastructure and carbon, where I get into that in a full feature, length video. Speaking of carbon based. So they just don't get it. And so that's what should scare everybody. And that's why I'm talking about this, even though I said I wasn't going to. My idea is I'm just... Yesterday I spent an hour or more just in my back porch where I grow my seedlings, getting ready for the spring garden. I can't wait to get outside. It's just... I've got 2 more months because I live, like I said, in the mid-Atlantic states, and it's just cold. It's cold. It's getting down into the teens here at night. So I got at least a couple of months. So much for your global warming. And guys like me and farmers and people in the know who watch this kind of stuff on a daily basis and keep logs, we know that the planet is cooling. People that actually pay attention to it. These guys are... guys like Kerry and forget Biden, he literally has dementia. All right, he doesn't know what he's doing. And that giggling vice president of his who just stands there and laughs at everything. She's like a silly schoolgirl who's an old lady now. Nothing worse than that, And they just don't get it. They don't understand. And they're thinking like, a movie Al Gore made almost 20 years ago or something like that, which was like entirely debunked. And every time I've talked about this, people, no, it hasn't. The UN IPCC reports, yeah, that was debunked too. All you have to do is look at what's going on. They don't understand. They never saw the reports. That the sun is contributing to this, and this has to do with the sun. There are things going on with the sun right now that are simply are over the head of people like Kerry and these UN IPCC people. It's over their head. They don't get it. The same with these academics who've been working in these Ivy League colleges, pushing this stuff out. They have no idea what's going on. There are countless papers over the past decade explaining in detail what this is. These guys aren't reading it. They're going in class and they're just teaching this next generation, climate change. And then you've got these teachers in grade school and high school that are telling these little kids, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to save the planet. It's like the planet doesn't need saving. Those people need to be kicked out. Those teachers need to be fired. Because they don't know the facts. We have a weakening magnetic system. Our poles are moving right now magnetically. All right, the sun's magnetic, field is weakening, and what's happening is that our climate system cosmic rays that are not just stuff that's coming in from the sun. We are at one of the most vulnerable times in recent history right now. Our grid could go down at any given time, with the CME. So this is the focus, and they're not even preparing people for that. Instead, they're talking about masks, and we need more masks, and like you saw with that thing, this Fauci guy who hasn't practiced, in 40 years as a doctor. He's just a bureaucrat, and I read somewhere he gets paid almost $500,000 a year. Imagine that. And this guy comes out here. He's like, I mean, just look around. You've got Nancy Pelosi. She's old. She can't. Her memory's gone. Joe Biden, his memory's gone. They pump him up with they remember it's the White House. The wealth, the ruling elite, so to speak. They have access to things that we don't. They juice these people up so they could come up there and talk and look like they are semi-aware of something, and then they go back and then they pretty much collapse. They get a blood transfusion from some 18-year-old blood. This is the stuff that really goes on. People don't even understand that. So this whole combination of climate change, getting into the Paris thing and eliminating fossil fuels and trying to putting these windmills in our oceans and in fields and on landscapes, just ruining a planet that is just a country, the United States, like whatever the rest of the world does, let them do. But they're just destroying everything. Who wants to live in a beach house and look out at windmills? Right? You drive down a highway and all you see are these windmills. Have you seen the windmills catch fire and stuff? Like I say, these things, or solar panels, solar farms. It's like, just put some solar panels on your roof. Make electric cars. They're doing it. That's fine and dandy, but it's not going. But you have a society can't function. There's not enough juice, whatever you want to call it, produced by carbon-based fuels. The combustion engine is the 21st century's necessity. All right, that's it. When you watch these people, the homesteaders and people who are trying to live off the grid, and repeatedly, inevitably, almost universally, they're always got a backup generator, combustion engine generator, because you get, it just happens, necessary. You get so many days, of cloudy weather, or what have you, or something goes wrong with a, with the solar system, the inverter, or what have you, and these people don't understand. They're literally playing with the society and our ability to function. Not to mention factories. How are you going to melt steel? Or better yet, how are you going to recycle things? With electric? And then what's going to create that electric? We use natural gas. These pipelines right now. I was watching a union member who was, one of the 11,000 that instantly got fired. They say, but the trickle-down effect of this whole getting rid of the Keystone XL pipeline, there's so many other jobs you don't realize. There's like restaurants or eateries or hotels where the guys who are working on the pipes work. The parts, the tools, everything. There's a whole, ecosystem around this, and we're talking about coming from Canada down to down to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, this is a major project, So, yeah, and what it's doing is it's taking this dirty fuel, all right, in many cases, and they're putting it in safely in these pipes underground. Now, do you know what's going to happen, and what's happening right now is that this is on rail lines. Which, do you really want rail lines transporting? And again, like I said, if you're going to have infrastructure repairs, it's not a matter of phasing into so-called green energy, solar and whatever. It just doesn't produce enough power. So we need more. Right now, the U.S. is energy independent. We need 5 to 10 times more fossil fuels, as they call them, in order to actually fix our infrastructure. And these people are clueless. They just don't get it. And that's just one aspect of it. And then, and that's, like I say, go see my other video on infrastructure. I highly recommend it. I get into it, in the whole videos about that. Now, on this one, I just wanted to touch on some of those other things we've saw, and when I was quickly going through just scanning some headlines. He's making executive orders that are like for kid stuff. Don't call it the China virus. That requires an executive order by the President of the United States. Like, this is like he's playing to children. And the media won't ask any questions about anything to this guy. They won't even ask. There are no hard questions. They're just letting these people up. It's like they look like a bunch of junior high idealistic student council members have taken control of Congress and the White House. I was in student council. I was a president actually at college. I did a term. I was actually the student government president of a college. I was into that scene when I was younger. I was I was that kind of, I don't know. I was in that. Like I say, I was being groomed for something I didn't want to be groomed for, But we're talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Everybody has a memory of some junior high or high school student council person and this idealistic thing. Let's have a drive so we can, and let's clean up something. Like, I heard somebody talking about that these masks have been causing major problems with masks being dumped in the ocean or something. And no media has dealt with that issue. Well, why are they dumping masks in the ocean? It's like this garbage and plastics in the ocean. Don't use straws in California because they're in the ocean. And my question is, well, why hasn't Governor Gavin passed some kind of executive order that says trash companies can't dump waste in the ocean? Everything breaks down. Remember, even plastics break down. That's one of those other things that they try to say. Oh, this thing is 100,000 years. No, paper straw. Or thin plastic straws. They're made from fossil fuels that come out of the earth. There's nothing more organic, all right, than asphalt. Like crude oil, is basically tar. I lived in California. If you ever went to the La Brea tar pits, you see this bubbling up. It's tar. Have you ever seen tar when they're fixing a road? It's tar. That's pretty much what crude oil is. And what refineries do is they take, they work that tar and they pull out certain things. Kerosene, gasoline, all the kinds of things. All right? And the refineries now are way better than they were decades and decades ago. there's all sorts of filtration. There's all sorts of ways of managing it. They've used. Remember, plastic was discovered by accident when they were at refineries. This stuff was being spilled on the ground, back in the day. We're talking about a long time ago. And they were finding that it was like forming some kind of, sheet, and it was like, whoa, what is this? And that's how plastics are a byproduct of petroleum. And everything in this, look around your house. Plastics are everywhere. Cars are made with plastic. Tires aren't rubber tires, not from the rubber tree. They're all petroleum based. And they're all byproducts, and that's what these refineries and these companies do. These people come out with like some juvenile junior high little idea. Let's clean up the planet and make it safe for the next generation and our grandchildren. It's like, but they don't understand how it works. It's like somebody who talks about the economy in some simple terms and they have no idea of how it works. The depth of it. Or somebody who criticizes something on Wall Street and doesn't even understand the Security and Exchange Commission. They don't understand the Treasury Department. They don't understand the consortium of central banks that make up the Fed. They don't know that the Fed is not the federal government, but a private entity of a consortium of central banks that works in tandem, in concert, I should say, with other central banks around the world. They don't understand what the World Bank is, what the International Monetary Fund is. They don't know any of this stuff. They just put some New York Times op-ed or New York Times editorial out, or Wall Street Journal even. Wall Street Journal's gone down the tubes. These people don't even understand economics. And it's worse when it comes to the climate and understanding Earth and the cycles of Earth, the 400-year cycles, the 6,000-year cycles, the 12,000-year cycles, jet streams, El Nino, La Niños. They don't get it. They don't know what affects weather and ultimately climate. CO2, this is a green planet. CO2 is necessary for the production of food, for those trees that give us oxygen, and the planet is filled with forests. They don't understand that. The CO2 thing has been totally debunked. Man-made CO2. And don't let them push in pollution. I think Carrie was trying to say something about children are getting sick with asthma every summer from, where? In Chicago, in inner city Chicago, downtown Manhattan, right? Inner city LA or something. Well, my advice is to the mayors of Chicago, New York, and LA, clean up your city. There was smog when I was a kid. There used to be smog. I lived in LA. Used to go up on the top of it's called the Griffith Observatory. It's one of the high points, and you can look out over LA. And there used to be a cloud of smog over LA. Well, it's like they've cleaned that up pretty much, greatly. On a very hot, muggy day, you might see a little bit of, it's not as clear as it should be. But that's LA's problem. All right? This is a big country, 330 million people. All right? Thousands and thousands of miles up and across. All right? So these guys, that's another problem with the coastal elite. They see the trash that their governors are dumping in the oceans because they live on the coast, or they see that the pollution that their cities have because they're poorly run cities. And so my advice is focus on cleaning up your cities. And who the hell, why are you allowing people to dump things in the ocean? You know, the concept of the landfill and sewage treatment and all sorts of things, the technologies that have come along over the past 20, 30, even 40 years are incredibly different than where these old men like Kerry and Biden and Pelosi and Schumer, these guys, they don't know what's going. They've been living in Washington, D.C., going to cocktail parties, you know, hanging out with, you know, going to these events, you know, fundraising events for, you know, for these Green New Deal things, and having people give them a PowerPoint presentation, or listening to a guy like Al Gore who's clueless, or Fauci who doesn't know anything, hasn't practiced in medicine for over 40 years. There's no realistic, down-to-earth knowledge of what's going on today in the world. And this generation of reporters that have come up, they're just kids. They jumped right into these jobs because they went to the right schools and they had the right parents and they just got in there. And so they've been sold this bill of goods by these academics who have been just teaching the same stuff since 1966 and have never had a job. Though, what is that line? Those who can't do teach. You know. Well, just a quick aside. You know, my father was in the printing business and basically never went to college because he, you know, was in the service and had to take care of a family, and then took over his father's business. But you know, at one point later on in life, he actually taught printing business was asked to teach, you know, to do some to teach at a local branch of a major college, and he did that, and he was and he was quite capable, and they were wise to have chosen him to have done that thing, because here's a man who actually had the real world experience. These people who in Washington, they have no real world experience. These reporters have no real world experience. That's like people talking about homeless. What are all these people living with tents in cities for? Right? What's going on with that? These are all solvable problems. Why are they basically hiring cleanup crews to clean up the feces instead of just saying, you know, no crapping on the sidewalk and here, we'll solve this problem? No, it's, you know, that's what I'm saying. But so it's actually, again, if I were a selfish person, I would say, screw you, you know, screw New York, screw Chicago, screw LA, screw Atlanta, screw all these places. You get what you get what you give. You get what you deserve. All right? You're just going to go down and whatever. But in the hopes that maybe somebody, you know, of sensibility might watch this or listen to this and pass the word. This is what freedom of speech is all about. And someone else might share this with their friend or somebody sitting next to him at a bar. Speaking of which, in Europe, all over Europe, there's a movement. It's not being covered by the U.S., where they're all going out to restaurants and bars. And we're talking about thousands and thousands, tens of thousands. Like in Italy, there's a movement. I forget what it's called. But yeah, they're just saying, screw you. Because we can't be afraid of germs. We have immune systems. We need to build up our immune systems and fight this thing. In other words, solve the problem. Don't politicize it. And what I'm afraid that's going on now is that my 6 to 18 months prediction, of the total collapse of Western civilization is now looking more like 1 week, because we're already into a week, 1 week to 6 months by the fall. It's like these bumbling people. If you ever watch Star Trek, there's this, some Commodore or something took over the ship because the captain was injured or something, and got involved in some battle with the Klingons or the Romulans or something like that. And he didn't, and the guy just totally froze, didn't know what to do. He was like, well, he had all the people from the various, engineering, navigation, communications, weapons. They were all turned around looking at this guy was filling in as captain, and and saying, asking for orders. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And the guy was like didn't know what to do. And if people have been in a battlefield, sometimes there's been some inept, platoon leaders and who've just buckled under the pressure, And so we have the commander-in-chief, all right, of the United States of America, which is basically holding Western civilization together. That's what the United States is. We stand to keep the barbarians at the gate from getting in, right? Without the U.S., this world turns into complete and utter chaos. The Dark Ages, the new Dark Ages, right? And we've got a bumbling, moron, demented guy at the helm with a vice president who just like is some giggling girl, all right? And a cabinet of people that are clueless on what to do. And they're trying to run, the greatest empire in the world. And meanwhile, they're, like I talked in my video yesterday when I was even talking about that movie Tenet, that there are things going on in this world that they can't even comprehend. Things that make a Jason Bourne movie look like a cartoon, a Disney cartoon, Looney Tunes. The real world is way beyond Jason Bourne, is way beyond Jack Reacher, is way beyond any of that. And we've got clowns up there that aren't even aware of this. So I didn't really want to get into one of these like preachy type of, crazed, speeches. But what can I say? That's where we stand. It's scary as hell. And again, I'm going to do all right. I'm just putting this out for you. I'll do all right. I already got out of the city centers. I lived there. I know what it's like. I left Washington. Left New York. Left L.A. Left Philly. But I lived and worked in all those places and others. I know firsthand. I lived life. All right? I know people. I know, I've been in charge of people. Hired, fired. I've seen their faults, weaknesses. I could tell, You learn over a lifetime. You learn through your mistakes. That's how you learn. You learn through your mistakes. Experience isn't. So Biden was 40 some years in Congress or something as a politician, professional politician. What does he know? He never learned anything. All he learned was graft. He's a grifter. Him and his family. All they learned how is figure ways of... Everyone in Congress, practically, are multimillionaires. Yet, they don't make million-dollar salaries. How's that happen? Why is that? Media never asked that question either. Oh, well, her husband was good at real estate investing. Yeah, and what kind of insider trading tips did they use that the average person doesn't have access to? Yeah, they're criminals. Government is run by organized criminals. And the world government is run by organized crime. It's like some thing, organized crime league. You know, it's right out of a Marvel or DC comic book. You know, Crisis Earth right now. That's where we are. And we don't have Supergirl, you know, or the Flash to, you know, or Green Arrow, or, you know, to save us. Because that's just fantasy. You know, that's escapism. I watch those things, and that's why I watch them, for escapism. Get my mind off the idiocy that goes around. I'm okay. I'll do okay. The question is, I'm telling you, man, what I saw happen in the past week is Looney Tunes, and it's not political. You know, I don't care. You know, I heard one guy say, "Where's Trump? Where's Trump?" Who cares where Trump is? I hope Trump doesn't surface at all. I hope he just, you know, golfs and hangs out and with his family and stuff, and doesn't surface. You know, that just could feed the media and allow and give them a, you know, something to further push their idiocy. You know. But I'm telling you, these guys are doing so much damage in 1 week. And where's our $1,400? You know, that's the other thing. You know, what's going on with that? It's like every promise they made, they didn't keep, except as these stupid, silly things like, we're going to change. You can't call it the China virus. Well, I'll call it the China virus. How about the Kung flu? Right? The Fauci guy the other day was in some interview apparently and said that it's quite possible that this did come from a fish market. People have already analyzed this thing and debunked that a year ago. I mean, these people are just outright lying, naive, or intentionally being manipulated to topple this country as fast as possible, to literally, I believe now, to literally hand it over to some sort of global rule. You know, some kind of global governance, UN-ish thing. That's the type of guy Kerry is. Very dangerous guy. You know. And a lot of these people they brought in. And they're opening up the doors to Iran and to all this terrorism and these flows of unskilled, uneducated immigrants into a country that no longer has a need for them. They talk about high unemployment in the United States and creating jobs in energy, clean energy, and all this kind of stuff, and highly technical jobs. And then they're talking about bringing in a bunch of migrant workers. We don't need people picking picking crops anymore. We've got machines to do that. And it takes heavy equipment to build, to raise and build and manufacture things like windmills, solar panels, you know. It takes heavy equipment to dig, you know, we talk about geothermal and all these other things. They dig down into the ground where it's constant temperature, and they have ways of having, you know, air, water pumped down there so that no matter whatever season it is, it's a constant, you know, certain temperature, and a temperature differential creates works their HVAC system basically. Well, that takes heavy equipment to dig those ditches. And the only thing that could do that is, just to be repetitive, but like I say, I'll jackhammer this as many times as I can, is combustion engines. You just can't do it with batteries. You can have the greatest breakthroughs in batteries. You could have battery banks, that weigh a ton. But those battery banks have to be charged. And most of our construction and repairs and infrastructure repairs are not in areas where we can charge them, let alone be able to charge them fast enough to get the job done. In other words, just if you took a thing like a skid steer, pulling up stumps, clearing a road, say, when it snows, running these running trucks that have to plow trucks, big plow trucks, with the salt or gravel in the back of this huge truck, ton truck, with this giant plow in the front. Well, first of all, there's no way that thing's going to run on batteries. But say that Tesla said, well, we have a way we could put 48 batteries in there. Okay, so this thing goes down the road, because we're talking about an awful lot of torque, combustion power, going on. There's a lot of stuff going on here just to basically move this megaton vehicle, all right, let alone be pushing snow, trees that have fallen down on highways, blocking people in, or telephone poles, power grid things that have been knocked over, trees over top of a house, or trying to get passageways from one city to another. Well, those batteries are going to be spent, in the first 20 minutes. I haven't heard anybody talk about this but me. I'm sure there's guys, sitting around at, places that rent and sell this heavy equipment, that are looking at this and just scratching their heads and laughing and saying, these guys, this is crazy. So that's what they're just not thinking of. They're just not, it's not even on their mind. They don't frickin' know. They don't know what they're talking about. We actually have a bunch of nincompoops. It's like, idiots who are running this country right now. And they're running it in the ground at such a fast clip. It's unbelievable. Anyway, I'm just going to keep repeating myself. Anyway, I'll show you. Go to my website, support the site, buy the books, listen to the music, Support these things, these little morning shows. And appreciate it. And we'll keep at it. And I'll delve deeper into these issues. Sorry about the babbling and the repetitiveness of it. I hope people made it to this part, and subscribe and like and hit the bell, and then you'll know when I do these, because I don't always do them every day. Anyway, take care of yourself. Don't argue over this stuff. Don't get caught into politics of pop culture or the cult of personality. That's what this isn't about. It's not about Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal. It's not about any of that stuff. All right? That's not what I'm talking about. It's about idiocy. It's about the lunatics are in charge of the asylum right now. And the idea is for you to, if you care about yourself, your family, your friends, or whatever, find a place to live that's as far out of the reach of this mayhem that these guys are causing at a much faster clip than I ever even dreamed of myself. Like I said, I was in the 6 to 18 months I figured they'd have Western civilization pretty much toppled. But right now, I can't. I think by the fall, if these people are allowed to do this unchecked, and the media is really the only thing that can check them. All right. Elections are over. Elections are over, and there's no election. We have an election for 2 more years. It's too late, And we can't trust elections anymore. We have no idea what's going on with that because they wouldn't allow anything to be. We don't know what's going on with that. So, and besides, all politicians they're all the same. They're useless. They're just puppets of other people and special interests. So you need to take care of yourself. It's getting worse. It's going to get bad, and it's going to go down fast. That's why I'm hoping they send me the $1,400 because I want the $1,400 because I want to make a few more preparations. In the meantime, have a great day. It's a Thursday morning. It's pretty cold out here in my neck of the woods, which is just in the outskirts of town. As you can tell by the traffic, I'm not in the middle of nowhere, But it's a beautiful day, and it can be a nice day. And I don't want to depress anybody, Some of this stuff may sound depressing, but remember, you have your own life. You're still free. And that level of freedom and happiness is up to you. You can do it. You can do whatever you want to, and just focus on family, friends, and your life, and your pets, whatever gives you joy, you can do that through this all. I'm just talking about what's happening and pointing out stuff that some people just don't hear anybody else getting into the detail that I'm trying to point out. Anyway, take care. I'll talk to you soon.